Hi everyone, welcome to tutorial for the train body. The first thing we want to do is we start a new project is we want to go up to projects. I've already got 2021 toy train, so we'll make another one. I want to go to new, single user project, next. Here's where we want to give it a project name. So you can call it IED 2020 toy train, and then click finished, and then click OK. And it is now my selected. The check mark means it has been selected, so everything I do from this point forward in Inventor will go into this folder. So I want to go to new. This is part one of the train body. So at this point, as we wait for standard.ipt to open, let's go ahead and double click on that. You want to make sure you have opened the Word document or the PDF that has all of your diagrams on it. It should be in your Canvas module under the assignment for the train project. And you open the PDF and it has pictures with lots of measurements on it, dimensions on it to draw from when we're going to be making these parts. So this is the first of three that we're going to do for the train body. This first one is going to get the basic train body done. The second one is going to put holes and other features that we need. And then the third one is creating a drawing sheet for the train body. This drawing sheet's pretty complicated because, as you're going to see, there's a lot going on with the train body. So without further ado, every time we come into Inventor, the first thing we're going to do is draw a 2D sketch. Now this is going to start off with basically a block of wood. We're creating a wooden toy. Start with a block of wood. Our block is going to have a little bit of a different shape. So first of all, we're going to have a rectangle. And then this rectangle will be dimensioned at 2 inches wide and 2.5 inches tall. So 2 inches in width, 2.5 inches in height. The next little feature, if we think about how cars and other things that we make have to go outside, they don't have flat roofs, generally speaking. Because if it rains, then water is going to stand on the flat roof, cause rusting and whatnot. So we need a little bit of a slanted roof or a curved roof. So I'm going to go into arc and I'm going to choose center point arc. So we start with the center point, and our center point is going to be located along the bottom line here. So if I start on the far right corner or left corner and I come across, the next green dot I hit is the middle of the line. That is the midpoint. So we're going to click there. And then you see the little construction circle we have, construction line circle. We're going to go up here and click on the top corners and come across, creating an arc, and click on the other top corner. And that is a center point arc attached to our rectangle. We're going to finish sketch. Now we're going to extrude this into our wooden block. So we go to extrude. And now it's waiting for us to select a profile. So I want to select the rectangle, but I also want to select the arc. So we've selected both. Now our distance should be 5.5 inches. And then click OK. So now you have kind of like a loaf of bread shape. I call it a bread loaf. You should have that at this point. If not, stop here, rewind, and go back and fix it. Next step. If you think about trains from the 1800s, they were steam locomotives, and the front of the train, it had this little thing on the front, the little cow catcher, but it also had a sort of a big tank. And on that top of that tank, it would have a smokestack and it might have a whistle and some other things. But the idea is we need a big cylindrical tank sitting here on the train. So we need to cut away part of this block. In order to do that, we're going to draw a new shape, or we're going to draw a new sketch here on the front. Right click, new sketch. And now we're going to draw a rectangle across the bottom, starting at the bottom left corner. Make sure you get a little green dot, and then come up and across, and then make sure you click on the line. And now we're going to dimension from the top of that rectangle to the bottom of the part. That height, according to your diagram sheet, that height should be 0.875. So now we have a height of our bottom rectangle is 0.875. Now that is the base of the train. I'm going to rotate this slightly. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this top section. But to do that, we need to make sure we project the geometry of this top piece. So I'm projecting the vertical left, I'm projecting the arc, and I'm projecting the vertical right. Now when I pull my mouse away, I should see 3 yellow lines. That means I've copied that shape onto my new sketch. And then we finish. Now we're going to extrude, but instead of adding material, which is what automatically happens when you choose an extrusion, I'm going to be selecting this profile, not the bottom. I'm selecting the top. Automatically adding material, but I don't want it to add material. I want it to remove material. So under Output, we click on Cut, and it automatically flips the direction and removes material. However, right now it's removing all of the material. I want to leave a section at the back for the cab for the engineer. So I don't want it to be 5.5 inches. If we look on our diagram sheet, it tells us that the base is 5.5 in depth. The cab portion is 1.75 in depth. It doesn't tell us how much to remove. So we have to do a little math. Either you do it in your calculator or you let Inventor do it. So I'm going to let Inventor do it. 5.5 minus 1.75. And Inventor does it for us and leaves the 1.75 here. So it removed, if you do the math, 3.75 has been removed. So we're getting there. Next step, I do want to add that cylindrical water tank. So I'm going to right click on the front again. And then I'm going to draw a cylinder. Well, when you draw a cylinder, you're actually drawing a circle if you're doing it from the front. So it doesn't matter where I put the center point of my circle. I'm going to dimension it in a second. Do stay away from the origin. Don't put it near the origin. So I'm going to draw it here. And I'm just going to come out a little bit to there. So I'm not drawing anything real big right now. I'm going to go back and dimension it, and that'll put it where it needs to be, and it'll increase the size to what it needs to be. Right now, I just don't want it touching either axis or the origin. Next, if I know that this tank, like in most vehicles, the left and the right should be equal, so I know this tank center should be even left to right, yeah? So if we have a width of 2 inches, that tank needs to be 1 inch from the left and 1 inch from the right. So I'm going to dimension and click the center of the circle, and then either the left side or the right side, doesn't really matter. Just make sure it's 1 inch. And then the height from the bottom. So center point to the bottom, according to your diagram sheet, the center point of that circle to the bottom of the train should be 1.375. And then the diameter, funny thing, they don't give you diameter in your diagram sheet because if you look at the sheet, it doesn't have a circle, it has an arc. And arcs are measured with a radius. So if we know that the radius is 0.75, we then know the diameter would be 0.75 times 2 for 1.5. So if you don't have the math, don't have a calculator, let Inventor do the math for you. This star symbol, which is Shift 8 on your keyboard, that means multiply. And now we have our circle, which we can then grow into a cylinder. So let's finish sketch. It's got our X and Y coordinates, and it's got our diameter. That's all we need. So we're going to finish the sketch, and now we're going to extrude material and meat back here. So click extrude. The first thing it does is it tries to grow material out front. If we flip the direction on that, it's going to change to a cut. Notice how it goes from green to red. Green is adding material, red is removing material. We don't want to remove it, but we do want to keep it in that direction. So we need to change our output to join. So now we have a join in the reverse direction. And then click OK. And now we have the water tank for our train. The last piece of the train body that we need to really kind of get focused on, the last big piece, is cutting out a little window back here for the conductor. Trains aren't solid. They have a little window at the back that the conductor would sit. So we're going to just basically draw a semicircle and then connect that semicircle with some straight lines to make it sort of a U shape. So we're going to cut out a U shape back here, but do be careful on how we do this. It can be a little tricky. So we're going to put a new sketch on this face. And we're going to draw a circle on this face. I'm going to draw it right here, and then I'll come back and dimension it in a second. The circle should be 1.75 from the bottom. So the center of the circle is 1.75 from the bottom. That was close. The circle should be 0.25 from the back. 0.25 from the back of the train. It's okay if the circle sticks out of the back. It's going to need to. The diameter of the circle. Well, on your diagram sheet, the radius is 0.5, which makes the diameter 1 inch. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. We want to draw a straight line from the top of the circle. It'll give you a little yellow dot, meaning that you're at the top. I'm going to draw that straight line straight across. You want to make sure it's perpendicular to the back line. It should give you that little perpendicular symbol. Then we're going to do the same thing across the bottom. Now we have two straight lines, both of them perpendicular. If you're not sure, then click the perpendicular constraint and then click that dot, and it should force it to be perpendicular. You could also click your horizontal constraint and force that line to be horizontal. Now when I hover over it, I see this dotted line going across. That means it's horizontal. Do the same thing down here. We're good to go. Project geometry of this back piece. And then now also we can trim the pieces of the circle we no longer need. This little piece right here is about the measurement, so don't worry about that. That's part of the dimension line, so don't worry about that. Right now we have this yellow line vertical from project geometry. We have this blue line, which is the little line I drew a minute ago, both top and bottom, and I've removed the excess pieces of circle that I don't need. And now, finish sketch. So this might be where you are. And then I'm going to rotate that corner so we can see it a little bit better. Extrude. We don't want to add material, so we want to change it to a cut. It's going to go all the way through. That's fine. Click OK. And that is the window. That's what we want.